I just had no idea how much or how much drive space I would need to edit with, such that we ended up with 20 terabytes of just raw footage in 2 separate places. So that was maybe 40 terabytes.
Yeah.
Plus then another 14. And the 14 drive I maxed out such that I was deleting files off of the 14 drive to have room on there.
Jeez.
But that's and so that's an expense that there's no way to get around, right?
Right.
Welcome to the This Train podcast, where we'll talk about all things in the making of This Train, the movie. Today's special guest is Ed Paul Fry, star and producer of the film. My name is Jack Lugar. I'm the writer and director of This Train, and I'll be your host. All right, well, post-production, as we got the film shot, we finished July 23rd. It was our official last day of principal to photography. And then we spent, you, me, John, Roger occasionally, another actor or two occasionally, picking up shots, just some car driving shots. We had to go shoot the lake scene. The fishing scene was the one that got canceled by the rain out. And so we went over to shoot that, and we had a wardrobe malfunction. We had some bridge shots we had to pick up of you on the bridge. And then we redid the fishing scene again. And, of course, we were challenged in catching a fish so that we could I'd like to say no fish were harmed in the making of this film.
We would like to say that.
I don't know about the one, but they both swam away to some extent.
Yes. Yeah, the fishing. We'll move on.
Yeah.
The fishing was that was fun. But it worked out. You know what? We caught fish when we did it.
We did have each of you had the fish when it was scripted to have a fish, and it pieced together pretty well, I thought. That's a scene again that if I had another pass at it, I would see if I could cut. If I could cut a minute, I would. Right? Those are the kind of things as a director, editor, you get too close to some of it, and I mean, I don't think it's any of it doesn't work. It's
not a bad scene. Not a bad scene. I mean, I think it was a necessary scene because it was a scene of bonding between those two characters, and so it was very. They found their bond.
And it certainly gets out some backstory that we needed to know about Ricky and Conrad.
We also had to refilm the barn scene.
Yeah, and then we had to go back out to the barn scene, and that was some of the one of the errors that I didn't tell Roland we were doing it. He was there doing something else, and I'm like, well, let's go do this. And then I was realizing we needed over the shoulder of him, and so we had to go back out again, I think.
Which
three or four times.
Which is okay. I mean, that comes back to acting too, and I'll just talk about those moments because we gave a lot of emotion, and a couple of times that we filmed that because it's an emotional scene, you know. But we're trying to find that balance. I mean, what were you envisioning as the director, as the writer? Right. You know, you had two different hats on that. There's that writer.
Yeah.
What are you first thinking about here? What are you thinking about as the director? How am I feeling it as the actor and trying to suss this character out a little bit?
Right.
You know, and Roland was the same way, and we were playing off of each other on that. The scene got a little too heavy, which was okay. I mean, but we needed to do that heaviness in order to get to a more sedate, level of it.
Yeah, I think that, and that's a very pivotal scene. It really kind of reveals the mystery that we don't know up to that point what's going on. So you sometimes I think as a director, I think that I would probably say let's give this scene more attention, time to shoot. Right. Again, in an independent world, you're just trying to get everything in the can, so to speak.
Right.
And if we had probably just said, let's give this more time, then we may have been able to save ourselves. Although I think that if we were shooting a film as a second film and we came across a scene like that, we would know better to give it more time, maybe.
Yeah.
Whereas this first feature project together and we're just trying to knock it out, we're just knocking it out.
Yeah.
Right.
In theater, we would have workshopped that thing over and over again, but you can't do that in film. So
well, one of the good things about it was that was a scene that after we shot, I actually went home that night and edited together. Though I put an edit together of that, which allowed us to see. Oh, we need to, we need to fix some of this to make it connect better. Would allow me to give you better direction for your acting and some of those kind of things. So that was
instead of be a better actor, Ed. That's what you kept telling me. Can you just be a better actor?
This was my number one instruction every time.
He did not say that. He was Jack was more than generous as a director.
I worked very hard not to give line readings, right? I mean, that's the big no-no for directors. Don't give your actors line readings.
Do not, yes.
So I was working hard to say, how do I convey this without line readings and so forth? But no, I tried pretty hard to be hands off on a lot of it. I don't know that.
But that's it. I do come back to that though. You're the writer, you are the director.
Yeah.
Those are two different, and you're seeing it from two different angles. And it's like you have identical twins. That you're playing with here. Just like this is my baby and this is my baby.
Right.
And they both have different needs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so.
Well, I tried to remove myself from the writer aspect when I was directing and not hold too tightly to this is the line that has to be said or something like that, which I thought that worked out pretty well. I had one moment where a line got changed. I was a little miffed about it probably, but part of it was because if it didn't get said a certain way, it was dependent on a previous scene or something.
Okay.
Right. I think I can't remember exactly, but that's the scary thing. If and sometimes the actor is focused on their scene. Yeah. Not a scene that maybe they're not in, but their line references something.
And they don't know that other scene.
Right. And so you're like, no, I need you to say that because it plays into this. Yeah. And so there was one moment where I was like, I don't mind you changing the line, but I need to know that you're going to change the line. Yeah. Because the hard part is I'm trying to watch on the monitor, which means I can't watch my script.
Yeah.
And so then I don't always know what line was changed or not because, you guys are acting and feeling the emotion and you're saying most of the lines that are there, just not the way I always wrote them, which wasn't. I didn't have a problem with that. That isn't a big deal. I think that happens quite often. But that was also one of the things where you're like, I think we need that, right?
Right.
Sometimes.
Right.
And so then there were a couple times where I was in editing going, oh, I just need that line. Ooh, that line's not there. Mm. But then there were other times where I was like, oh, it is in this shot. Yeah. We caught it so that when we reshot it, right, it was said in that.
Right.
That's the interesting juggling part. But I mean, as a director, I had to know that script really, and I knew it real well because I wrote it, but I had to know that script really well so that I knew what we were doing at that moment and we were doing it correctly, I think. So. And
there were a couple of actors that they'd only read their pages. They didn't know the story.
Right. Yeah.
And, which happens, a lot, but that was really interesting.
Well, that was the joke with the crew was that I don't think most of the crew had read the script. So they all had a copy. And so I had one crew member who I knew had read it. Right.
Yeah.
But I was like, I think you're the only one. Right.
Yeah.
That had read it. And so I would reference something and they go, I don't know. What do you want this?
I know it was Rieger who walked out of the first screening, the opening night, and he was just like, "Oh, this is really good. That's how that ends." I'm like, "Yeah, man."
Yeah.
So
it's funny. Yeah, obviously, editing-wise, I was pretty much holed up by myself for the most part. But I remember I had you come in and watch a couple scenes. I think early on up in our editing bay here. I don't know if you had any reaction or thought about it when you watched the first scene or something like that.
I'm sure I did. I probably was just trying to be cool, man.
Yeah.
So no, it's.
I can't remember which scenes they were that I showed you, but
honestly, Jack, this whole thing is just—it's been a whirlwind. It's been 2.5, almost 3 years, and just been a whirlwind of just me still trying to put this together in my head.
Yeah.
Okay, why me? How did I get involved? This is so cool. This is really just a great moment, and I'm so just taken and honored, and
Yeah.
that you would even ask. And so I've got all sorts of thoughts.
Yeah.
I think that's a line from the film, but I got all sorts of thoughts. But
Yeah.
but I think it's just trying to comprehend. I mean, the just the gravity of all of this stuff that's taken place. I mean, this has been a beautiful whirlwind.
Well, it's.
So,
I mean, it's. I mean, because I wrote it and have edited and now I'm working on marketing and so forth.
Yeah.
I've been just inundated with everything about it, which means a lot of the other creative work that I like to do has been put on pause, trying to write some books and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But, no one has any clue what goes into something like this, right? Which always amazes me. There's so many films still out there at festivals and
Yeah.
that there are film screening of people that did what we did.
Yeah.
Right. So I have a new perspective, and even though I'll watch something and go, that's not very good, I go, all respect.
All respect. I watched a couple of films not too long ago, some independent films. I'm just like, I have all the respect in the world for this. This was horrible. I have all the respect in the world for what you guys just did.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things you don't even think about in making a film like this, which the beauty of digital filmmaking has changed the world of filmmaking. So it opens up a lot of opportunity.
Yep.
And it opens up the opportunity for a lot of less than quality stuff too. But that's also, I mean, one of the things that always held me back was the idea of shooting on film. I was like, how can I afford to shoot on film?
Right.
And maybe I would have figured it out, but with digital, it made that part easier, right? But the thing, as we were preparing to shoot this, I'm like, okay, I need to get a 5 terabyte drive so I can store all this footage, right? And I was like thinking, and John and I are talking, and we're like, oh, but I need to back up the footage. So I need 2 5 terabyte drives, right? We're like, okay, 2 5 terabyte drives. And then in reality, we're like, oh, we ended up shooting on the Arri Alexa Mini LF, which wasn't the plan to begin with. When we started dreaming about this, I thought, I'm shooting on my Nikon Z6 with an Atomos monitor, so we can shoot 422 ProRes, 4K, and so I thought that's how I was going to shoot it.
I have no idea what you just said.
Right, and I only know a little bit. That's why I hire other people to do some of that, right? But I was like, because we're going to be mobile, and these cameras today can shoot amazing quality, right? And so I'm like, that's what we're going to do. Well, then we, which never wasn't part of the plan and wasn't even in the vision when we started doing the process. Here at Anderson, we acquired the Alexa Mini LF, which is Arri's camera, and it says it's a mini, but it's still a beast.
Yes.
And so once we added that, the file sizes are huge that you're creating, and so we were shooting still 422 ProRes 422 something or other, and I got 4 or 5 terabyte drives, and I think we were a couple days into shooting, and we're like, it's kind of the Jaws moment. You're gonna need a bigger boat,
right?
You're gonna need a bigger hard drive, and so ended up I bought 8 5 terabyte drives, and we put all the original footage on a set of 4, both 2 sets of 4, so that we had backup. And so one set I took home with me every day, and one set I left here in my office. And so once we were done, I was like, okay, cool, I got all this, but now I got to edit it together, and where am I going to do that from? So then I bought a 14 terabyte hard drive to use as my editing drive that I would connect to Premiere Pro, and then I had to create proxy files, which makes them smaller size files so the computer can process that information, because if it's working with 4K files, it bogs down, slows up the editing process, and you can't see it fluidly through. So I had all these proxies, but so it was great. We weren't shooting film, we're shooting digital, but digital brings its own new problems, right? Yep. And so I'm trying to think what the cost of those drives were, but I probably spent close to $1,000 just on hard drive space.
Oh, wow.
To back up, and there's stress there. We didn't lose any video footage. We lost audio footage, and somehow another audio file from other than those first 2 days got missing, right? So we ADR'd certain scenes, and if I had my choice, I'd probably have ADR'd more.
But ADR is to be expected. I mean,
yes.
What is it, about 85% of films are,
Most major films, once you walk outside and you think, oh, we're shooting outside, and birds start chirping and airplanes fly and cars drive by, you're like, okay, we'll ADR this.
Yeah.
It's just one of those kind of things that comes with the territory. But anyway, that was something that I just had no idea how much drive space I would need to edit with, such that we ended up with 20 terabytes of just raw footage in 2 separate places. So that was maybe 40 terabytes.
Yeah.
Plus then another 14. And the 14 drive I maxed out such that I was deleting files off of the 14 drive to have room on there.
Jeez.
But that's and so that's an expense that there's no way to get around, right?
Right.
These are the things as we were mentally budgeting, and I was creating a budget, but most of the budget had zeros in it, right?
Right.
Hard drive footage, you need, that's can't be a zero. The camera, I owned my camera, but then working at a university, that allowed me to cut a lot of the cost of equipment, right? And then crew, again, most were students or recent graduates, so I could cut that cost.
Yeah.
With actors, mostly just, hey, for you can.
Think about two-week rental for an area and lenses and everything. I can only imagine the astronomical cost.
That would have doubled our budget, tripled our budget potentially.
Absolutely. So.
And so cast and crew, just gifting of time essentially. Which people go, "Are you going to make another film?" And I'm like, well, I wouldn't mind doing it if I can, figure what I want to do. But I really would like to pay everybody.
Yeah.
Right. I'd love to be able to remove that begging part of, hey, it'll be great for your IMDb credit. You can use this for your reel, right? And really for it to be something where they can, feel like they worked.
They can, exactly.
Instead of volunteered. So we did ADR. And, that's not uncommon for feature films.
For the neophytes on the
automated dialogue replacement is what it stands for.
Just basically voiceovering. We're re-recording the voice.
Yeah. So. And so in editing, I would create a clip of one line with a countdown 1, 2, 3 with beeps, beep, beep, beep. Yep. And then the actor would say their line while watching themselves on screen. Yep. Saying the line,
trying to match our lip and mouth movements, everything else,
and so
inflections and all of that.
Yeah, I lined it up to do it 3 times in a row, and then most of them we did 2 or 3 times, trying to kind of nail it and try to mark down. The time-intensive part was creating all the beeps and cutting each line and dragging it into a new file, and then we came in to the studio and laid those down.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing.
No. Right,
and you're trying to kind of match cadence. You're trying to match emotion potentially. So, and then I'm trying. Then when I go in post, I'm trying to match tone, right? So you said this line in an echoey basement. And now we're in a studio where it's all dampened sound. Can we match that? And sometimes I succeeded, and other times we had to come back and do it again.
Right.
So I don't know if anybody ever said anything to you. I had one person who's a professional editor in Hollywood, and I said to him afterwards, I said, well, we had to ADR a couple scenes, and he said he named the scene, and I go, yeah. So I knew a professional would see it instantly.
Yeah, I catch it, and I know which ones it's just watching me, but I'm just like, good Lord, this is still a miracle, and it's amazing.
Yeah, most of them laid down pretty nicely. We had the scene with Thomas, again, the first day where he has this long monologue.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, how are we going to do this? And for the most part, it works pretty well. And again, I see major motion pictures, TV shows where it doesn't always sync up because they can't.
Right.
But they need to get that line in there. So, again, we did it.
Yeah, we did. We did.
You worked with Benji on scoring.
Yes.
And so, again, a great gift that you and Benji gave to the film to lay down professional scoring for it.
It was very cool in working with my old buddy, Benji Gaither on that. And like I say, we worked together for 35 years, and we've just been involved musically and all of that. And I just knew he's had the experience of doing that, and I think he did a great job with it. Another part of it, my son Theo.
Yep.
He's just started messing around with some stuff, and he played something for me one day, and I'm like, I that fits in the film.
Yeah.
I think we could do this, and so that was a very cool thing to be able to take a piece of his music and to underlay that into the score itself too. So,
and this is not on specifically music, but this film was a family affair.
Yeah.
That's one of the.
They all work for free, Jack.
Yes, well, I like to couch.
Luckily, we have talented families.
I couch it as a bonding moment,
yes,
not a using
yeah.
my my family resources. But it was fun for me to be able to work with. My daughter was our AD and coordinator and pulling a lot of weight, and her husband Aubrey, who was working full time, would come in from Illinois on the weekends, both weekends, and help out, clapboard, whatever needed to be done. He just subbed in there, and so that was fun. And then my son Ethan and his wife Emily did props, and Ethan helped with craft service and just kind of all the extra stuff, kind of putting up with the crap that has to be put up with, and so that was fun for them to do. And my youngest son Conrad acted in the film, and so that was fun to have them a part of it. And then my wife, who basically gave her blessing for this to even happen.
Yes,
because it wouldn't have happened without her saying, yes, we can spend our money doing this, and is our executive producer, and she didn't get to come to set very much because she was out there hustling, doing her full-time real estate job and bringing the money to make sure the film was happening. So couldn't have done it without them. And then for you and your family, I'll let you list off.
Well, yeah, Theodore, who's my youngest son, who plays young Ricky on the tracks, and that's which was interesting. It's because Theo looks so much more like his mom, but he had that long, beautiful mane of hair. He's also 6'1" too. He's definitely taller. But the magic of movie making. But we made that work. So that was very cool that he got to be a part of that, and then of course got part of some of his music in that soundtrack too. So
and he came on one day and was doing clapboard and helping out. Afterwards,
helped
too.
out with all of that stuff. So he's jumped into this filmmaking thing early, at 16 years old.
Yeah.
So 17 now, but 15 at the time. Yeah. My other son, Tobias, he played the street busker, Zeke.
Yep.
Zeke Michaels. And, when we were trying to figure out who could this street busker be, and I'm like, I got somebody.
Yeah.
And what I loved most about that scene was not only is Toby, my son, playing that street busker, he's singing a song I wrote.
Right.
At his age. I was probably 21 at the time when I wrote that song. Benji and I wrote that song together. Cousin Willie's 69 Chevy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And which happened to be driving a
right.
69 Chevelle, so it kind of worked out.
Right.
But yeah, it was just really cool to be able to put that in there, and Toby's singing that song, and I get to have that moment, or Ricky does come in and sing in that moment. So, and Heidi got to have a little walk-on scene there with that. So it was a real big family affair with all of that. So that was a lot of fun to put them into it. So
yeah, and then our
they get their
families-
IMDb credits, DB credits early.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah.
Everybody. I'm pretty sure I got everybody on the list. Yeah, and so then the other aspect of this crew, which is not really post production, but the other aspect of this crew and cast was just this connection to Anderson and Anderson University.
Yeah.
So actors wise, Benji, Julia. I'm trying to think who else officially. Well, me, I teach here. I sort of did a little bit, and
John, Rollin,
Yep.
Rollin came here to school in the 70s. So
Yep.
yeah, he graduated.
John, and so the crew, John was a graduate, Roger was a graduate, Hannah is now a graduate, and some other students.
This is an Anderson University, or AC.
Yeah.
AC University is what we
That's right,
used to
yeah.
call it back in the day. So Anderson College, Anderson University.
Yeah, that just this connection to Anderson now University was just that was a fun aspect of it, and really keeping it Anderson focused. I mean, we shot everything in Anderson except for the scenes that were on the farm in Noblesville.
Yeah.
Again, which was my connection. But otherwise, we really made it.
But we didn't
Anderson.
even. Other than, I mean, this was an Anderson University per se. I mean, they were very generous in helping produce this thing. But we didn't mean to do that. No. We really didn't mean to find all of these alumni and everything. It was just our circle. And we have an incredibly talented circle, which is pretty amazing. So
nailed it.
Yeah.
So festivals and distribution, and so we talked about this early on about how you need a deadline to finish in some senses, right? So we got done in July of 2022, and I edited for a little bit full time before school started, and then it was basically evenings and weekends, and I was piecing things together, and I think in December we started doing some ADR and piecing more stuff together, and I'm constantly getting the question, when's it coming out, right?
Right.
I'm like, when's it going to be done? Coming out, and so, but in the summer, towards the end of the summer, deadlines start happening for festivals, and specifically here in Indiana, the big dog of festivals is the Heartland International Film Festival. And that was our hope, that we would be able to screen it at that festival. The film was not done, but they did allow for it to be submitted in progress. And that mainly meant we didn't have the soundtrack done, or the scoring. Excuse me, we didn't have the scoring completed yet. And we didn't have, just audio is a nightmare. Just trying to lay down sound effects and doing folio and all these different aspects of creating that sound, and which is for independent film is always going to be where you struggle,
right?
Just because there's so many hurdles. But we did get word. The festival's in October. I think they make the announcement mid-September. So I think somewhere at the end of August, we got word that we were going to be a part of the Indiana Spotlight and screen at the festival.
Yeah.
I know all along we said, well, I think we'll screen this at Heartland.
That was the ever hope, just throwing that out into the universe of saying, if we have a world premiere, we want it to be at Heartland, because I mean that's also a home to us, both of us too. I've worked there for years and been very much part of that, and it's very near to my heart. And you have worked with them, through the university. So.
Yeah, so that was. That was a great moment that we could then start talking about it with everybody, and hey, here's where you can now see it. Here's going to be the world premiere. And, the way Heartland works, they've got everybody gets 2 screenings. And so they set up 2 screenings, and one sold out right away. The second one sold out pretty quickly after that. And so we were one of the few films that got a 3rd screening added to the list. So it was really cool to see people come. A lot of people came twice. That was nice, and people that had some part of it got to see it on the big screen.
Yeah.
So not that we ever had dreams of any kind of theatrical release, but films are made to be seen on the big screen if you can do that.
Yeah.
And so that was a great opportunity to do that, and share it with again, family and friends, people that had either watched us making it, been a part of it, or had on the periphery kept hearing about it, so that they could come and see what we did.
Yeah. See, Mom, I'm legit. So.
Well, I do remember my parents came up from Florida, and the timing worked out. They were supposed to come earlier in the fall and couldn't come for a reason.
Right.
And so they postponed their trip. I said, well, if you can wait till this date in October, you can come to see the screening. And so they were able to work it out and brought some friends. And I remember seeing my dad walk out afterwards. And he always goes, I don't know anything about what you're doing or how you do that. And he's always been real proud of those creative endeavors myself and my siblings have done. But, you tell your dad, I'm making a film.
Yeah.
Dad, I'm making a film. I don't know that registered what that really was. They actually were able to come up during the shooting and were in a scene because my niece was getting married. So they ended up in the chapel church scene. But again, I don't think they knew, you can't really.
They didn't know. I mean, people there in that scene, again, it was a whole cast of extras that had no idea what they were walking into.
Right.
Just, this would be very cool. I'm just going to sit in here for 30 minutes. And I'm like, oh, no, no, you're not.
Yeah, we're going to have you stand up. Okay, everybody sit down.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I got actually everybody but my my older sister, my younger brother didn't get to be in it, but my younger sister was in it too. And but I remember my dad came out after that first screening, and I could just see in his eyes, he's like, I don't know how you did that.
Yeah.
I don't know how you pulled that off, right? And I don't know, in a lot of ways, I think we both look and go, I don't know how he pulled this off.
I have no clue.
And that's not to say that we created
you worked
a masterpiece.
the problem.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we didn't. I mean, I'm not saying that we created the best film ever, but we did something that was, and it turned out pretty special.
It did turn out pretty special, and I mean, there are plenty of things to critique.
Yes.
About it, and there have been people that wanted to say things and everything else, and it's not that I don't want to hear the critique, but I usually stop and say, I hear you. I am so proud of this thing.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. I said, in the end, you know what? I know what we did, and it's pretty special. No, this is not going to win an Oscar.
Yeah.
I'm not. We don't know what happens from here. I mean, but in the end, we've walked away with something we're really, really proud of.
Yeah.
And can build from.
Yeah.
That's it.
So So I remember looking at my dad's eyes, and I just thought, and it was a proud moment for me as a son to have him respond that way, and that he just said he was real proud, and that's those are special moments to share. And so to be able to talk to people afterwards, and Josh Stafford just was super kind. He came up to me after the Paramount screening and just said, I appreciate the way you presented the city, what you did for Anderson. And that meant something to me because, I didn't grow up here. I've only taught at the university, and so my Anderson experience is driving through, right? And so a lot of times my perspective is totally different than somebody who lives here or has been here, I think a lot of times I just saw so much of the, I've seen the bad, but I see so much of the beauty and the character that this city has, and so that's that was the other character in the film, was trying to just let Anderson show its good side in some senses, and I think
as a Rust Belt town, this is my adopted town, and but it's a Rust Belt city. I mean, this used to be a thriving, and they're still trying to come back, and from the GM days and all of that stuff, when this was just there was just so much happening.
Right.
So much happening. There was wealth. There was, people had homes, and it was all cool stuff. And trying to recapture that. But I think, your vision for it with coming through Anderson and seeing it as an outsider.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was a huge deal, because, you know, sometimes those of us who it's way too close,
Right.
and we know where all of the worms are.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, you saw it for its beauty in its own. There's some crumbling things here, yeah, but it's coming back. It's coming back to life. And if you can start telling that story, I mean, Anderson's been, this isn't the first time it's been on film,
Right.
and those have been less than generous portrayals of this community. But it's a really cool and thriving community, and they're trying to do something here. And you know, so I think Anderson itself is a character in this film, and that was a huge part of it too. You know, just like it portrays Hellcat. It portrays, you know, Ricky and Anderson. They parallel each other. You know, what happened here?
Yeah.
You know, how do we? Is there something redeeming about this?
Right.
And there is. You know,
right.
That's the beautiful part of it.
Yeah,
so.
It's a redemption story.
Yeah.
It's a story of coming back, and so, you know, that was always the vision that the city would, you know, and there are times where I go, I wish I could have captured more, and let more of that storytelling happen. And again, that's what independent filmmaking is. You are guided by your restrictions.
Yeah.
And as I teach my students, limitations force creativity. And so some of the things that we did were because we had limitations, but we had to get creative in those moments. And yeah, so that's what's there. We didn't make a perfect film, but we certainly made a film that I think is still very good. It's entertaining. It's certainly challenging. It's an emotional ride. And so, yeah, I'm very proud of what we created.
Absolutely.
Very proud. As we wrap up, any final thoughts that come to mind about the film or process?
Honestly, I think I've said it all. I'm just, you know, in the end, I'm still. It's been a whirlwind of it, and I'm still honored, you know, to have had this opportunity, to have this chance. So thank you, Jack. Thank God I met Jack Lugar. That's I say that, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. It's changed my life in a lot of ways, and it's helped me grow in a lot of ways, and understand things, and get in touch with my own creativity again, and bring that back. You know, at 50, you know, coming out of a pandemic and things like that, you know, we're just our heads are spinning, going, now what? And you know, you're in the middle of changing jobs and all of this other stuff, and still trying to, as a musician or as a creative, as an artist or something, you know, I'm still trying. Am I even relevant anymore? Was I ever? You know, all of that stuff, and not that any of this makes any sense of relevancy for anything other than it just the creativity and the creative moment, and getting to live into that sense of artistry is just like, man, that's special. And not a whole lot of people get to realize that and see it. So see it through.
Well, the feeling's mutual from me. I mean, I couldn't have done this without you. And I've tried to communicate that to you. Hopefully you've heard it from me, because that is the thing. That one of the things that always held me back was, you know, I need this partner to make this happen, right? And I have my wife as a partner, and she's a great support. She wasn't going to play Ricky, the Hellcat Heller, for one.
That could be interesting, though.
It's a whole new story there. You know, so I you know, when you want to make a film, you need those partnerships. And I just, as we started dreaming together and made a commitment together to make something happen, because that's the thing. If one person doesn't hold up their end of the bargain in that sense, and you know, what did we have to hold each other's feet to the fire other than passion and willingness to say we're going to do this, right?
We did.
And so there was a level of trust and commitment.
And those right people coming along in it, you know, Julia, you know, we still go back and just like, man, that was an amazing connection. Yeah. And that was bigger than us. And I love that.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to do this this together too, is to really go back through and think through some of those things. There's so many things that happened, and there's things that are in my book here that we probably haven't even touched on in some senses that I note. But yeah, it was that partnership that made it happen. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Ed. Thanks everybody for watching and joining us on a reminiscing journey of This Train. Please check out the film. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of This Train, the podcast. Please check out future episodes where I talk to other members of the cast and crew. Until then, take care.